Welcome to the Let's Talk ICP podcast. Welcome everyone. Today we have a special guest. Is the founder and the CEO of Discover, the largest platform by number of users in ICP. We have with us Rick Porter. Thank you so much, Rick, for us.
Hey, thank you for having me. Super excited to go through this, and there's a lot to talk about. So, yeah.
Awesome. Great. Yeah, thank you for being with us today. Just to introduce a little bit more about Discover, DSCVR. Discover is a decentralized social content platform running on the Internet Computer Protocol, running 100% on-chain, where users control not only the content, but also the platform itself. Discover is the first decentralized social network that is on way for mass market adoption. Currently, I'm not sure exactly, but I checked yesterday, for example, the Discover official portal have more than 53,000 users. Yeah, the general portal 33,000, Art 23,000, ICP, Asset X 23,000, IC Breaking News 23,000. That's crazy for like a platform, social media platform on the Web3. Before to dig in more in Discover, Rick, how many users are currently using Discover?
Yeah, we have five, like throughout the week, it'll go between 5 to 10,000 daily active users. It's been a really interesting process to see that number as it grows throughout the time that Discover has existed. We finally have like a transaction log. And this is probably the craziest thing for me. We have a transaction log, complete transaction log for Discover. And we thought there was a bug with it because there was like a couple thousand transactions after, I don't know, minutes, and we were like, okay, so maybe we did something wrong because we've never really measured how many transactions we get, and it was accurate. So it's been really interesting process to see the platform, see a decentralized platform have so much activity and so much engagement. So it's been and we have all these other things that we've been rolling out. So as these new features roll out, we're understanding more and more, what kind of use cases there are for Web3 and social.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yes, okay. And before to dig in more in Discover in the platform, the audience also want to know more about you. Could you please introduce yourself, Rick, your background, and tell us more about your experience before to start the project, the Discover, before to found this project, and also maybe your hobbies and where are you living and this type of personal things. Maybe you can share with the audience.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. I started off in computer science many years ago. My first job actually was I was working for a company called Accenture, and they're like a consultancy. It was right out of college. I was living in Los Angeles, and my first client was Warner Brothers, which is really cool. I was like, wow, I'm gonna go to the movie industry, and so at Warner Brothers, I was like, oh, I'll be sitting in an office, but no, I was actually like on the movie lot where they're like making movies, shooting commercials, filming TV shows and things like that. So I was a software engineer writing like a protocol for a distributed file sharing network. And this is like provenance. This is like, how would they trace the process of developing a film? And there's a whole supply chain, and I did this many years ago, so I don't remember the whole thing, but basically when they film something, how do they digitize it, and then how do they digitally move that between all the different pre and post-production shops, but then how do they trace the film that is actually being worked on through all these pre and post-production shops. So it's like traceability, distributed networks, and I was like, so this is like my very first thing out of college. And I felt it was like, wow, this is interesting. I think the project actually won an Emmy. It was an Emmy award-winning project, which is kind of funny also. Mm-hmm. And so after that, I actually went to my next client was MySpace, which is further dating me right now. But at MySpace, I was working at like one of the Hulu early Hulu offices, and we were doing digital video encoding. So we were like converting everything from any format into something that could play on the web. And it was very much like, YouTube was very popular at the time, and MySpace wanted to have video on their platform. But it was really interesting working for a social company, a company developing a social product. And at that time, I was like, I always wanted to do something like this. I always wanted to feel the experience that they were. And there was a lot of early influencers while we were there, and it was just really interesting to observe how influencers interacted with the platform, and how there was this like how the relationship between influencer and social network actually existed. And after all of this, I decided to go build my own company. I built a email marketing company, and it was the intention was is like really customizable software that allowed you to like on the fly generate custom emails. And I did that for a couple of years, and I was able to have a reasonable exit from that company. And after that, I started a dev studio, like a venture studio. I'm still in Los Angeles, loving Los Angeles very much. And at this venture studio, we built a lot of different startups. And it was very much like in the process of building and breaking other startups. We did a lot of unusual things. We had one of the apps that we built actually made it to Shark Tank. So someone would come to our venture studio and be like, hey, can you build our application for us? And we built an application for drones. And this is years ago, before like the huge craze before drones like really took off. And we got acquired like really after a couple of years. We got acquired by Boston Consulting Group Digital Ventures, which is like a management consulting company. And while I was at BCG, I did like big data and AI. I built for State Street, I built a chief risk officer AI. So basically, this AI tool would like browse the world of news and tell you what is wrong with your portfolio relative to your public equities and the public news. And it would generate this like whole news feed for you. And so I've always had this obsession with like using Reddit at the time, and always did. But we built them this tool, this news feed based off of their portfolios. And I was like really excited about AI, doing a lot in AI. But then I came across blockchain, and this is like 2016 or 17.
Mhm.
And I started just working with Ethereum. We were doing diamond trade. We were trying to figure out how do we trace diamonds on the Ethereum blockchain. So like, how do you actually extract the data from the real world and place it on chain so you could have some sort of provenance? And the whole project was for a client called De Beers. De Beers is a diamond company based out of London. And we were tracing diamonds from the time they left the mines in Botswana to the time they hit the retailers in Antwerp or London. And it was a really interesting process because you learned about scalability of decentralized projects, like and feasibility of decentralized projects. And I always remember those early days because like the original idea was we were going to put all the whole application on chain. Like we are going to put all the smart contracts on chain. And if you've been developing for Ethereum smart contracts back in 2017, that was kind of realistic because gas fees were low. And I remember us thinking, oh man, this will cost hundreds of dollars to actually do, possibly thousands of dollars to store this data on chain. And this is where Dominic Williams kind of came into play with the internet computer. And he was very much about, how do we get these business applications on chain? And those days, it's like at the time, it was unrealistic and not feasible to store entire applications on chain. It was just the gas fees were too high. And I mean, right now in time, the gas fees are way too high for to do something like that. But even at Ethereum, when it was a couple $100, it was too high. I think it was like 50s of dollars or tens of dollars, but still. So this started that journey of building decentralized technology. And I think ever since then, I've been building and breaking different startups on for Web3. And eventually my time led me to Google. So I was at Google for a bit. And while at Google, I was like, it's a great company, a lot going on, but at night I just kept thinking about Web3. I couldn't stop like working on different projects for Web3, and um, Definity's internet computer was getting closer to launch. And so I was like, oh, I really want to build something for it. You know, I spent so much time talking to the foundation all those years that, you know, as we're getting closer to mainnet launch, I want to build something. And it really started off as a simple project. I
Mhm.
wanted to use like assembly script, which is a programming language very similar to TypeScript, but allows you to compile into WASM.
Uh-huh.
And um, the project ended up turning into Discover. You know, I really wanted to get back to like building social networks and figuring out all the different paradigms of how they worked. And it was, is this feasible? Was the first question. And I think before mainnet launch, we had a demo up of Discover, like a very early alpha, and people just used it. People would go onto the platform and post, and there was bugs. So it was about fixing those bugs. And at the end, before mainnet launch, we had this whole feature list of like, okay, it would be cool if the user could do all these things. And that's what happened. We actually ended up developing Discover in a way for when mainnet actually launched, we could actually have a very basic social network.
Mhm.
And I mean, this is what it's been. It's been, you know, the years after mainnet launched. Now Discover is like a funded venture, and we have, you know, the almost 200,000 users. We have a high of, you know, 5 to 10,000 daily active users, and there's so many random features on Discover at this point in time that like it's hard to list them all. But on the high level, you've got uh, posts and comments, and then you have the ability to create communities, and within those communities you can define very granular roles, and then it natively plugs into Web3. So you have the ability to gate these communities through NFTs. You have the ability to have verified profile photos relative to your ownership of that NFT. We have a full like an airdrops, a wallet, you know, and a wallet that supports at this time, I think, maybe 800 or 900 different types of NFTs on the internet computer. And we're starting to do cross-chain integrations. So we're starting to see more Polygon and more different types of protocols that now have more native access to Discover. I think the biggest one would be the BTC, right?
Yeah.
You can come to Discover right now with a click of a button, give exchange certain amounts of Satoshi or tip certain tons of amounts of Satoshi with different users on the platform.
Hmm. Wow, nice explanation, and your journey. That's really cool. All the experience that you have in different companies, and I'm curious, how did the idea of funding Discover come about? Because you work in Google, right, as a technical
Yep.
programmer manager during like 2 years. Google for sure is a big company. It's a great company to work in California. You're pretty well, but then you think it's like, okay, this is not enough for me. I need to create something. I need to build something. Yes, and yeah, tell us more about the story behind the scenes, and how you start this one. If only you was in this journey, or if you have other friends that comes with you in this experience, and to found the Discover.
Yeah, you know, yeah, Google's great. You know, internally at Google, the company is very interestingly structured, right? Like to me, all I could, when I was in Google, all I could see it is this is like a Web3 company that is built on its own island. Like that sounds like really weird and bold statement, but like everything's open at Google. Like almost every single, the entire code base pretty much is entirely open sourced internally. So any employee has the ability to contribute to different projects within inside of Google if they choose to, if they want to do the work. There's message boards internally which are shared by the company. I mean, there's an entire like search engine internally for Google that searches internally all the applications in Google. So there's like Google within a Google. And so you really saw this like in this whole ecosystem on its own island. And you're like, wow, this is like, could you imagine this actually being a DAO. Could you imagine Google actually being a DAO, or a company like that where they've built their entire organization on this platform? And it's how it felt in a lot of different ways. So it definitely felt like the leap between how Google is right now, this like, it's a publicly traded company, but like internally everything is private. If they kind of flip that script and move everything to be external, and then you have this whole, 100,000 employees, which are almost like citizens of this internal world, and actually figured out how to pull it from this internal world into this island and move it to this external world. I always thought that would have been an interesting organization. So it's like definitely was like as soon as I got in there, I was like, man, I really love Web3 and I love a lot of the things that it offers. I want to figure out how to build an organization that kind of meets these needs.
Mhm.
And I've always loved social. I've always loved the dynamics of it, the complexities of the algorithms, complexities of like how you're creating applications that interface with users. And so it was really just like, I really want to build this, start small, just like really focus on building these social primitives, these social tools like comments and posts and communities, and go from there. And I think the journey, it really just started off as like being very simple. Like, I just want to experiment with this. It wasn't like I'm going to go off and build an entire social network. It's like I really want to figure out those first initial steps. But like as it grew and as more users joined and as more features came, it became very obvious that like there's no way I could do my job at Google and maintain Discover. So I left Google. I left it. It was a really hard choice. Also, like a very easy choice too when it came in front of me. It just seemed so obvious. But like after leaving, um, it's been like obviously Google has like amazing salaries and amazing benefits and like really takes really well care of their employees and gives thorough processes and things like that. But I've always been an entrepreneur and that's just the way I was. So for me, although the change at first was like, wow, this is a pretty crazy thing to do. It was one of the best decisions I've actually made. And it's great to see like Discover as a company grow, and like it's great to see the people that we've brought on to Discover to work at Discover. It's great to see them like really engage with the platform and really want to solve these complex problems. So it's been huge privilege and an honor to be able to do this. Period.
Uh-huh. And that's great. That's honestly, if you have like, if your soul is like an entrepreneur, and you want to be like an entrepreneur, even if you are working on the best companies or one of the best companies in the world, is like the best decision, as you mentioned before. And I have a who accompanied you in this process. You have also other colleges or other partners, or the decision was
Yeah.
made only with you or with
No,
other?
we have three. There's total three founders for Discover. So it's me, Juan, Bruce, and Alex Turner. And so Juan's mostly on the strategy side. Um, and he's mostly working with like external clients, helping us bring on like pivot for different types of strategy as far as like how are we a social network, what are the changes that we need to make, looking a lot of cross-train integrations, trying to figure out how do we grow Discover externally outside of the ecosystem. And I think we have some pretty big announcements over the next couple months about different integrations that we have coming in. And Alex, the COO, he handles a lot of like operations and research for Discover. So making sure like the day to day actually happens. And we always have enough money to be able to do what we need to do. So he's been both of them together, and the three of us together have made a pretty good squad. And employee wise, I think we're at about like 14 or 15 employees at this point in time.
Mhm.
Um, and huge diversity in backgrounds within the employees, but like people who really love what they do. So
Mhm.
it's been an interesting, very interesting squad that we've put together. And it's like we have like VR meetups and things like that where we all jump in VR and like hang out and do play different games. and we've got a lot of interesting contractors too, some interesting people who have joined the company over time. But yeah, it's been a huge privilege.
Yeah, wow, that's cool. And also like the ICP, or how did you first find out about ICP? I mean, did you consider other blockchains before? You put like a list different blockchains and see what is the benefits, advantages, disadvantages, and then decided ICP, or once you meet ICP, it's like, okay, this is the blockchain. As you mentioned before, the gas fees cost, it was pretty high for you in all the companies, the diamond company that you mentioned before, and you realize that the reverse gas fee model on ICP. Yeah, tell us a little bit more about these things.
Yeah, so I knew of ICP back maybe 2017 or 18. I can't remember what it was called back then. I think they were String Labs. Maybe it was a little bit before String or after String Labs existed. And then I think they renamed to Definity or became Definity. So I was pretty well aware of them for a while. Dominic Williams would help with the De Beers project because he was obviously working on trying to build the internet computer at the time. So he was curious on like what would worlds like if you were to build an entire business application on a protocol, what would that actually look like? And as ICP got closer, the feasibility question became like very real. Like I had to ask myself this question too. And I was ready. I mean, I was ready to leave my job to go work on this full time. So I had to make sure, like, there was just no protocol at the time that could really do everything that we wanted to do while still maintaining being on chain. And I still to this day, I am not aware of a protocol that can do this. Um, and there's just so much potential to, and there's still like, I'm going to say something I feel is like a little edgy, but like, I don't think most applications that are being built on the IC, I think they're only using a small subset of its capabilities at this point in time. Very small subset. I think the capabilities of the current ICE of the software that powers the internet computer is far greater than what is being currently used. So I think we still have so much potential to unlock for the internet computer. And I'm hopeful that we'll see a lot of new applications that are coming out with completely new paradigms over the next couple of years be released.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What is the most benefit thing, or the most advantage for you for Discover using Internet Computer Protocol?
I mean, the reverse gas model helps a ton. You know, like since everything takes place on chain, imagine like every upvote, you get a little pop up from MetaMask that you have to like sign the transaction to confirm this upvote, and then you're paying like a couple cents to do every single one of them. But maybe you get clever with it and you perform like 20 or 30 actions,
Mm-hmm.
and you decide to get another pop up that signs all these transactions. You're paying a penny to a couple cents to do it all. It just doesn't like it doesn't bridge that gap between web 2 and web 3, right? It doesn't simplify that process. I
Mm-hmm.
do think like also like the internet identity was really novel. I mean, you could basically create an identity that's linked to your fingerprint scanner on your phone, right? And now with NFID, you can simply link that to a Gmail or your MetaMask if you choose to, and a lot of other providers. So I think there's no other protocol that makes the process of actually using an on-chain application so simple. And like web3 gaming is something we're very passionate about. We've always been really interested in how to bridge web3 gaming into Discover.
Mm-hmm.
But like if you use web3 gaming off chain, like or off, I consider anything not on IC off chain, but if you use something on like not intentionally, just accidentally, but like if you use, play web3 gaming on Polygon or other protocols, it's a little bit of a friction process, let's be real. Going as a US citizen, going from who uses Coinbase, um, going from Coinbase or going from zero matic to matic, it's a tough it's a tough process, man. You got to do a lot of different steps. Got to most likely bridge ERC20 Matic to native Matic, and then once you're on the chain, then you can actually start using that those currencies, but like or tokens. But like, what's the problem is like there's so much friction. And with the IC, I think people it's going to blindside Web2 users. They're going to be most likely in the future going to be using Web3 applications built on the internet computer and just be completely unaware of it. They're just going to be like, oh, wait, this is Web3. Or their idea of Web3 it'll never sink in. And I think that's kind of to me the dream, where it's like inception. You know, you've taken a Web2 user, incepted them to using Web3 applications without them being completely aware of it. And I think that's what's going to happen with future and current applications built on the internet computer.
Also, yeah, let's dig in more in Discover, in the features and the application that you are created. I want to know what is the value proposition of the project and why it's much better than Reddit, right? That Reddit is like similar aspects, but it's like maybe an evolution also.
Yeah, you know, I think like Reddit will always be Reddit. Twitter will always be Twitter. Facebook will always be Facebook. Those applications have done an incredible job of being who they are.
Yeah.
And I think for Web3 social networks like Discover, it'll be about unlocking new consumer behavior. And I think like as we are on this journey of unlocking different types of these new consumer behaviors, you know, we've mirrored our Web2 counterparts very well. Like, you know, there's a lot of people are like, oh, it's yeah, has my Web3 application reached parity with Web2 social networks? And I think that's true. A lot of them have, but now it's like really unlocking those next levels of what is happening post Web2 parity. And I think that's actually where the real innovation is starting to happen, right? I don't think I think an application hasn't even begun the innovation at times until they've overcome the need to reach that Web2 parity, which I don't even think is necessary. But like for assets to move like a hurricane to us is very important. Like, how do we get assets on the platform that we're not in custody of? And that's something about internet computer that does super well, is a very simple sign up process that applications are not in custody of those assets, right? So from Discover perspective, like there's, you know, millions of ICP worth of assets within inside of the wallets of Discover users, but none of those assets are under the custody of Discover itself. All those assets are within the custody of the users. And then because we're natively built on the internet computer, now all of those assets are natively accessible to each other in some ways. And so to us, that's where like a lot of the interesting Web3 mechanics are being locked with like SocialFi. Like, what is SocialFi? Like social finance, right? But like a lot of these Web2 or Web3 apps, you know, where is the SocialFi? And I don't think NFTs are really SocialFi. I do think tipping is a bit SocialFi. Like, it's interesting. But like Web2 can do tipping. Where I think the real interesting part is going to be embedded applications within social networks that allow you to directly interact with a smart contract of some sort deployed to the internet computer. And you already have these native assets, and people will be able to do things like staking within inside of Web3 social applications. They'll be able to compress all their tokens into a single token. So I'm like, on social platforms right now, and on Web3 particular, you're receiving so many different types of assets. And how do you, with DeFi on Web3, which is, since we're already native, how do you take all those assets and compress them into single assets? I think we're going to, like, you have 20 different types of fungible tokens, but do you really need all those fungible tokens? Maybe you can just click one button and convert them all into one single token. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that on Discover over the next year, whereas DeFi becomes more popular on the IC, it'll be more native to Discover to be able to do those things. But like from a strictly Discover perspective, like we have a lot of features where you're able to subscribe to different portals. So set up subscriptions to a portal, NFT gating, like disallows, and fungible token gating. These are the types of things that we're going to see more of. But I think from that financial perspective, there's also like the capabilities perspective. And to us, it's about transparency with these algorithms. Twitter's done a great job of like open sourcing their algorithm and continue to pivot in the public. But I think giving users control over their algorithm to us has been very important. Like, how do we allow you to control your own social feeds and your own algorithms? And that's something we're also very close to releasing.
Yeah, and then also the platform is the interface is really good. I think it's pretty user friendly. Discover. I love also the way that you can create like a new channel, right? Like new portal, because you have like discover points. You need 500 discover points to create like a new channel. How we can get more points? It's like if you create like good content, if you create more post more quantity of posts. And then also another cool thing that I see is you can send directly, like if you read, for example, a good post, you can send it directly like tokens.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can explain more a little bit these features, because I think it's really cool, right? And it's like encourage people to do better content, better quality content, and it's like a way to organically grow more the platform, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think feeds are things that we're in the next couple of weeks, we'll have some pretty big announcements around feeds. But self-posting is another thing too. A lot of users are like, I don't really want to post to a community just yet. So we're going to allow them to post to their own profiles and things like that. But yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and also the airdrops, right? Because for example, when I enter in my Discover profile, I see sometimes like new NFTs on my wallet.
Dude, same. Sometimes I'm gonna pull mine open, but like sometimes I see stuff in there that I'm like, what is this? So where did this come from? Yeah, like right now we basically automatically sync your wallet to what is available with inside of Yumi. Definitely Entrepot. Entrepot's an amazing partner. They help us so much on different things. And another marketplace. But yeah, we're able to like
The CCC?
yeah, CCC. There's actually one more too. There's a fourth. So we use Dab to. I'm hoping someone picks up the Dab project, but so our wallet, like we no longer add NFTs to the wallet; they just automatically start showing up. So if you're owned by, if your principal, if they are dropped on like Entrepot, so if a collection is created on Entrepot and it's dropped to your Discover principal, within like 5 minutes of that NFT collection being created, it'll be completely available on Discover to use. We're continuing to add more support for NFTs. So we just scan the whole blockchain, the internet computer blockchain, and for canisters and detect if they're some sort of NFT or not, and we support it. Fungible tokens are a tricky one. There's so many fungible tokens, so we try not to. We try to manually support those.
Yeah, because it's fungies and NFTs, right? You have both
Yeah.
of them in the airdrops. Yeah, but that's cool. Normally, like I just like enter into the Discover to check if I have a new NFT or new fungies.
I know we're working to notifications are getting a huge revamp. I'm probably post new feed launch notifications are going to be our next, because we have notifications. I just don't like them. I think notifications are more complex than an action happened. I think notifications are like, these 6 things have happened here, right? You don't need a notification for all of them. Also, tipping notification, that'll help a lot. Like people want to see the tips they've gotten, and people want to see the airdrops they've gotten. So we're going to be able to start having particular notifications for those that are automatically detected. That's the hard part. How do you automatically detect it?
Yeah, this is like a hard part. Also, like if you receive like a likes or something or messages, right, in your comments, would be great if you can see directly this comment, because it's like a good timing, right? You can directly instantly like reply or whatever. And this is I know it's like every single social media platform can improve for sure, but this is like a good way to improve definitely. And also, Rick, I'm curious about how Discover moderate the content on the platform. If it's like illegal content regarding with violence, sex, drugs, or whatever, how you can detect this type of posts?
Yeah, reporting is the only way right now. We follow the same rules as the boundary nodes for the internet computer, pretty much. Um, we did a whole deep dive into AI moderation sometime in December of last year. And kind of the conclusion was we came to a huge conclusion of like, to do a lot of the things we need to do, we need to re-architect how we built Discover from the ground up. And we slowly been releasing new types of this architecture. But the end of this journey, which is actually getting very close now, it's so close. Um, we will be able to do like build moderation tools for the users. So this like hopefully will allow users who run communities to be able to like moderate their own communities, but through automation, right? Like auto moderation is super important. Um, a lot of these larger social networks, like 60 or 70% of the moderation that takes place is auto moderation. So automatically moderated through tools. So it's like, okay, one, we got to give transparency to the user on like what is actually happening, so they know that it's got auto moderate or not. We got to give transparency to the community creators, like the portal owners, to let them know what has been moderated. So we've been building out this system for moderation to improve on Discover and improve that user experience for what is being moderated. But like right now, it's up to the community or the portal owners to moderate their own content. And then eventually we get reports of bad content or inappropriate content, and we usually take action on it. We have a whole system where we log exactly what happened and then save it or delete it. But I mean, as a social network goes, there's so many reports, so much moderation that actually happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Great, perfect. Also, another thing that I would like to discuss is about the how is finance discovered currently, because the platform is by now is totally free, right? You can enter and you can
Yep.
post whatever. Also, yeah, the investors, right? VCs that are behind of the project. Last right was 9 million, right? Seeds around
Yep.
by Polychain Capital. I assume now it's quite more easy, like get funds, but before in the beginning, when you start the business, maybe it was more difficult, right? Like get
Yeah.
more business angels, venture capitals. My question here is like, it was easy for you like convince them about the potential of Discover and how you like get the support of these VCs and this money, and also yeah, how is finance Discover currently?
Yeah. It was, I mean, it was a really complex process. I was fortunate that Polychain posted on Discover. There's an old thread where they came on the site. We're like, oh, this is interesting. So I reached out to him over LinkedIn, but there was a lot of research, a lot of conversations that happened about how do we actually turn this into a real social platform? How do we design the protocol? And so it took like 6 months to really close. From the first conversation to closing, it took like 6 or 7 months. And it was a lot of like very open conversations about who the team was, what our capabilities are, where we're going, what direction, how do we intend to scale the company, what's our business plan, right? And we're really focused on user growth over financial mechanisms. I mean, if you have a social network, there's a lot of with a pretty good network effect taking place. There's a lot of ways to monetize a platform, but getting to that network effect is actually the real challenge over the monetization. I mean, if we had, as the network effect grows on Discover, there's a lot of ways that we can come up with the size of team that we have and the cost of our infrastructure to help augment those costs, um, including ads, promotionals and things like that. And like, but then how do you give transparency not only to the user, but to the advertiser? and then the content creator, because there's the trilemma right there. So it's a very interesting relationship between the three, but there's also like a whole growth mechanic within all three of those also. So we will address probably revenue in the future, but like an inch or a double-edged sword about revenue is that if your platform's focused on revenue, um, it may not be focused on growth, right? It may be focused on like growing the revenue, but I don't think that truly benefits the user as much as it should. It benefits creators. Does it benefit consumers? That's a whole complex equation. I think we're going to see more applications do like social applications do subscription models, but only a very small percent actually subscribe. Very, very small percent actually subscribe. So I don't think there's a huge impact there, but I do think there's a lot of impact for verified accounts, but like paid for verified accounts or earned verified accounts. There's a whole bunch of complexities there. And I think like right now, we're very focused on improving the general feel of Web3 social and watching closely on how those mechanisms are rolled out for other platforms and try to make a decision for Discover in the future on those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Thank you for sharing this, because it's important also to grow the community. Yeah, you can, maybe community can pay for these services, but if you focusing just in growth, not in business, I think it's a better way to grow organically and grow more. That's totally true. And also, yeah, are you planning to go to the SNS, like do like a decentralized sale in the future, or not now? How it works, like the tokenomics, if you are thinking to like discover any token?
Yeah,
Um,
good question. We've spent a lot of time with tokenomics over the past like year and a half. We see a lot of models, a lot of models. Um, you know, when we originally launched the platform, Steemit was pretty much the only Web3 decentralized platform that we felt like had any kind of traction at the time. And there was Voice, and there were so many Web3 social platforms before we launched. Um, and we really would have looked at the tokenomic models. And I think I still think that the right model has not really been unlocked. One thing we do know is like Web3 has this concept of X to earn, like move to earn, post to earn, click to earn, something to earn. That's like native to Web3 in the community, and interact to earn, engage to earn. There's so many of these models. So we want to figure out like, is there a different way of looking at that model from a Web3 perspective? And I think we have a little bit more time to figure out tokenomic models. I think there's got to be a more interesting paradigm that we can come up with that really facilitates a more diverse user base. But I think the SNS is the right way to go. I think the SNS is going to facilitate a lot of apps like Discover and possibly Discover itself to be able to perform, to be able to do the things necessary to actually have a proper tokenomics model. So I think like SNS is great software, and I'm really excited about the future teams that'll be launching on it and seeing how they progress.
mhm. Okay. And yeah, another question is like in terms of partnerships, collaborations in the future. You mentioned like you are going to you have good news for the next 2 or 3 weeks, and you're going to share with the community. I'm not sure if you can share here something or any of these features, any of these new features, and also in terms of collaborations, partnerships for the future, because ICP is like a strong community for sure, as you mentioned before, like different marketplaces as Entrepot or Yumi. Yeah, I'm curious if you are also talking with other different projects on ICP. We have now also, for example, VR in ICP starting doing like things like intelligence or artificial intelligence or virtual reality. I'm not sure exactly that, but what is your vision, the future of Discover as well?
Yeah, for us, it's been about connectivity. Like, how are we integrated with other applications? And this is something we don't just talk about, we actually do. We've been integrated with UserGeek from the very beginning to help do user analytics. We've had a tight relationship with Entrepot, and they've helped us a lot in the early days with understanding how NFTs work on the IC, but actually integrating with NFTs on the IC. We've done a ton of work with now Yumi. Yumi's helped a lot. We've had an integration with CycleOps. CycleOps is like cycle management for the internet computer. So all of our canisters are actually managed by that, which I actually think we actually integrated it like a day or two ago. And I think the first, yes, it works. So it works very well. So people should use it. We no longer manage our cycles for our canisters. Someone else does, which is great. We have SigDAO. SigDAO is another DAO on the IC, and they have like a portal, and their proposals will automatically push to the IC. We have SNS integration. So we're integrated with the SNS. If a new one launches, we're able to spin up a portal or community and run proposals through the IC. We have, I don't know, let me see if it's public. Let me see if it's public. It is Polygon wallet integration on Discover right now. It's not very well announced because we haven't told people what we're doing with it yet. But I mean, there's going to be ability to start pulling in these assets from Polygon into the IC. I mean, we see the CK ETH coming, so we'll see CK EVM stuff, which would be Polygon also. But there's going to be a lot of integrations for Discover and Web3 gaming. To us, Web3 gaming is going to be huge on the internet computer, and so it's definitely, we want to facilitate those platforms as early as possible, and facilitate those different applications. But we have Spaces, which is like Twitter Spaces. Twitter Spaces, it used to be like, we used to be like, oh, it's 2 weeks away, but I think it's actually 2 weeks away. But maybe, well, we'll see. We did the demo. I did the demo yesterday for Discover Spaces, which is like a way to do have a large room and be able to have a voice. It's a voice application for Discover. So like Discord, you can jump in a voice chat. Same thing will happen with Discover. You'll have a voice chat room that you can create in your portal or on your profile, and other users can jump in. You can have a conversation. You can schedule them, things like that. That'll probably be. I did the demo yesterday, and it was pretty fun. All internally Discover employees all jumped in there. We all had a conversation on Discover, which was like really bizarre. But that'll probably, like, based on how it felt, maybe 2 to 3 more weeks. That'll come out, but then we'll be able to release video, so you'll be able to share your screen on Discover or display photos. So we're gonna have fun with that format, and we have a whole engineer dedicated to that process, so it'll be interesting.
Oh yeah, so cool. Yeah, and then you can send like CKBTCs or chat
we're gonna make it gotta get weird with it. Like, I think the V1, maybe not CKB tipping, but I want it in V1. I really want it. I want to be like, we're just chatting. Someone's up there chatting, a speaker on like Twitter Spaces. And then people like what they say, 50 Satoshi, 100 Satoshi, 1,000 Satoshi, things like that. I think to me, like, I want Discover to feel, it feels very alive, but I want it to feel like very moving fast. Like, I want tons of conversations to be happening simultaneously, and I want a lot of interactions to be happening within those. And I know the IC can support it. So let's just get there. Let's just get that application up and running. And I think we're positioning a lot of Discover. Like, we've built an incredible foundation for the back end. We've rewritten it. It's really powerful, very strong, like, can recover very quickly if anything goes wrong. Front end is currently going through a rewrite right now. So slowly things are going to start popping up and working. But once that foundation is created, which is very soon, we're going to start iterating very quickly on unique features. But we wanted to build, like, instead of, like, we realized all the things that we want to build, all these tests that we want to have, including like Spaces. But we're like, oh shit, we need the foundations to be very strong to do that. Because every time we test a new feature, we didn't have strong enough foundation to continue it. So now it's like, okay, if we have any feature that works, that really creates that flywheel, we'll be able to continuously grow that feature. And so that's why we're getting all these primitives in place first.
Okay, great. Nice, nice. Thank you, Rick Porter,
Yeah, no, thank you.
for your time. I have now like OG questions, OG ICP questions.
Yeah.
More funny questions. The first one is, are you a 8 years gang? Are you staking ICPs on it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Great, cool. The second one is, which dApp on ICP are you using daily?
I mean, besides Discover, I guess I check User Geek a lot. I check NFT Geek a lot. I think sometimes I check Open Chat. Some cool conversations that are definitely happening in there.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many random like Cyclops is probably another application I'm going to be using a lot. Web3 gaming, something I'm super interested on the IC. But yeah, there's a lot. I guess my whole world's a little bit icy right now.
Mhm. Okay, great. At least you mentioned a bunch of them. That's cool. And another question is, which person or what person you admire on the ICP ecosystem? Like someone that you hold dear, like you think is
Yeah,
like an excellent professional, an excellent person, and someone like inspire you.
yeah, God, it's so hard. There's a lot of like the instantly like a dozen memes like crossed my mind. I think Stephen Andrews to me was always like someone I was like, damn, that guy like he really created innovation in the complete dark. And he's from Entrepot or Tonic, and I was like, damn, that guy he really created really interesting and unbelievable innovation in a space that people were having an incredibly hard time like actually innovating. Like very early days of the IC, it was complex, and he was able to do things and make discoveries within the IC, and make decisions. Him and Bob and Steve, all three of them, they made great decisions very early on in the ecosystem that to me, the only reason a lot of the NFTs still exist to this day is because of some of the decisions that they made at the very beginning. And I think I'm really great to work with those guys, but also it's awesome to see what Stephen Andrews has accomplished.
Mhm. Okay, nice. And for you, what is like any project on ICP that maybe now is not super big, or they are deploying something, or they are like growth a little bit, but you think maybe in a years it's like a big project. Some
Shit.
yeah.
Um, I don't have a particular project. I think I really hope I'd love to see Infinity Swap or one of the dexes really grow. I really want to see a dex take off. I
Mhm.
think I think we have this definite need for like very robust DeFi on the internet computer. And I really hope it's to see one of the DeFi projects actually just absolutely blow up, you know? And I think this will create huge opportunities for other projects on the IC to actually blow up also. So Max, I've always like had great conversations with, and I hope he wins. But I hope much success for like IC Lighthouse or Infinity Swap or one of those projects.
Mhm.
And I think it'll have a global impact to the internet computer. I think there'll be a huge wave that could possibly happen.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we need like DeFi like take off and start to like maybe like working on a stable coin or something, but we need like more users and more DeFi projects that allows people from outside the ICP ecosystem interact with ICP, right? And we have more liquidity. And definitely DeFi is one of the pillars on ICP that we need to grow for sure. Okay, and then just the last question is, what is your vision for the future? How you imagine Discover in 2040, for example? Because Dominic, but yeah, the roadmap of Dominic is 20 years, right? It's like
Yeah.
2035, 2040. How do you imagine Discover in a decade, for example?
Yeah, I see the global social fabric, which is powering the next generation of social networks. I think for us, opening up the API and allowing anyone to build on it, anyone to post on it, any like very unique and robust applications that basically is embedded into the fabric of protocol of decentralized protocols, but embedded into the fabric, deeper into the fabric of like how social works. And I think we have an opportunity to get there, but I think there's so much to learn about how that actually works, and there's so much technology that needs to be built for us to have an entire ecosystem of applications. And I think there needs to be huge ecosystems of applications. And I also think there's going to be the social graphs of the future is going to be a multi-graph. It's not going to be hopefully it's not a singular graph. I think that wouldn't be great, but I think it's going to be a multi-graph with interoperability between all the other social graphs.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Rick, CEO and founder of Discover. Yeah, I hope you the best for the next years, for the next months, for the next futures that you are in mind. And yeah, thank you so much for being with us today and take your time to accept the invitation and to dig in more in this pretty cool project.
Awesome. No, thank you for having me, man. Hit me up anytime. And thank you very much.
Okay. See you soon.
Later.
Thank you. Bye-bye.